massive hello to the whole English speaking, English learning and English teaching community out there, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for listening to Lilia's Sunday podcast. And this is, by the way, another episode of Lilia's Sunday podcast. I hope you're doing fine wherever you are in the world. I hope you had a great Friday night, an excellent Saturday, a relaxed Sunday morning. Sunday in Ukraine is amazing because you don't have to go anywhere. For some people, it may be the time when they actually go to bed after a sleepless night. That's not about me though. This Saturday night I was at home in my bed eating sushi and drinking lemonade. I'm not sure if that's a good combination though. And of course recording the podcast. So I hope you enjoy it and leave your comments below it. And if you have an account on podomatic.com, then you can follow me as well. And if you like the podcast, you could just go to the button to follow, right? And follow me. So that would be just great. So please do. That would be just-tastic, if you follow me on Podomatic. Or anyway, okay, that would mean that I will be able to share more tips with you every week. Okay, so that's what I do. So on the topic of Friday night, I met my colleague and my friend, that's one person, my colleague and my friend, and we had a chat about all our professional things, including ways of teaching and what works best in language teaching and what ideas each of us brings into the language classrooms. And that happens on Friday night. My friend, whose name is Ira, by the way, is really fond of psychology. So, she's one of those people who have this rare inner natural talent for helping people who need advice on how to run their lives. And her advice is always the best, I must say. So she told me about this wonderful combination of psychology and language teaching that I thought will be useful for all learners of English. So I'm sharing it here today. And I know that Ira doesn't mind because I asked her if that's okay to share her tip on Lilia's Sunday podcast. So this has literally become Ira's Sunday podcast because this is a piece of advice from her. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to ask you one question to make you think. So have you ever tried to learn poems before you go to bed? And on the same evening, you repeat a poem 100 times, but you don't make any progress. But then, magically, when you wake up, you remember the poem well and you easily recite it. So Ira told me how it all works. Okay, so 20 minutes before you go to bed, your brain is at its full of the memorising activity and your memory works at its best. So what does it give us for language teaching? Actually, so this means that 20 minutes before you go to bed, it's time for revision. In other words, revise 20 minutes before you go to sleep and you will remember new information better. Ira tries this tip on all of her students and she's noticed they start keeping new vocabulary in mind more effectively. This works best for vocabulary, of course, whatever technique you use to learn it. You could use flashcards, translation, whatever, but just try doing it 20 minutes before you go to bed. And hopefully that works because this is your physiology, right? This is not really psychology, but this is your physiology. This is to do with your brain, and this is how our brain functions. Anyway, you could just try this out once. Ira made an example of a student who then remembered 40% of new lexical items before he tried this tip, but after he did this, he started remembering about 60 or 70% of new information. So isn't that a good indicator of the fact that this tip works? Okay, so please try it out and please tell me in the comment section what do you think about it. Okay, is it a good idea to use this tip? Or do you have any other tips for revision? So here is the tip of the week. This is the tip of the week. Please go and try to revise 20 minutes before you go to sleep and tell me if it works for you, right? So is it a good idea to revise like that? Yeah, so does it help you? That would be very nice to know. Okay, I'd really love to know if that works for you. So that's it for this podcast. Make sure you try this revision tip and tell me if it worked. So what are your tips to revise successfully? I would love to hear about them. And please tell me in the comment section. And don't forget to follow this podcast if you think it is a decent podcast to follow, right? I mean, if this is a good podcast to follow, if you want to know about learning English. I think I started talking rubbish here, basically, so I won't really keep talking too long. The only thing that I'd like to say is just, gigantic thank you guys for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I hope that my talking rubbish section doesn't really exceed the tip section, because that would be ridiculous. Okay, so talk to you next Sunday. Bye bye.